Next, let's move on to basic functions. I will briefly go through all these functions. Problem control. Because we are going to add or modify some data, it's better to use test database. First, let's go to problem control. Sometimes if customers have complaints about the quality of the product or other things like the shipment or any complaints, you can come to problem control module to add a problem log. Usually for our sales department, we're only gonna use customer complaint, or sometimes maybe you have other problem log. So right now I'm gonna select customer complaint. Categories, select customer. Problem type, either select customer complaint quality or customer complaint others. Issue date, I will use today. Building. If the product is noodle or chow mein, you have to select Brooklyn. If the product is fortune cookies, you will have to select LIC. Or if the product is agro mix or bean sprouts, then you are gonna select Plainview. So right now, I'm gonna select LIC. Customer, I will do ship to code, part number, fortune cookie, lot number 2345. If it's available, then you have to fill it in, otherwise you can just leave it blank. Brief description, text. So pay attention, if the field has a asterisk, it means it's required. But for other fields, you have to fill them in as much as possible. Defect type. Underweight. Okay. Because we are going to do workflow, so right now I want to use apply rather than OK, because I want to stay at my current page. See, the workflow link is right here underneath the status. I'll click into it. On the drop-down list, we're gonna select which department will do the next step. Because this is a quality problem, so I think I need R&D department to come to investigate. So right now I'm gonna select R&D, then OK. Say the status changed to waiting for R&D, then you are done for your part. Next is quote tracking. Let's go to quote tracking. So if you want to quote something for your customer, then you come to the quote tracking module. First, you go to add quote title. Usually it will be part number. Quote description. Customer. Address. Quote group. I will select cookies. Also, all those fields, you have to fill in them as much as possible. You may notice that there's a next button and a previous button, but they are grayed out because you don't really have permission to go to next part, which is the notes and the part summary, especially for the part summary because they are cost of the item. So you don't really have permission to do the cost or to say the cost. That's why you only have to do the first part, then finished. Let's take a look at the quote we just added. Now let's do the workflow. See, you've already complete your step. Then the workflow route to your supervisor. He has to approve it. Then it will go to the R&D, then to someone who's responsible for adding the cost. But you're done for this quote. After the quote is complete, you will receive an email. Next, let's take a look at employee expenses. Go to employee expenses. Click Add. Select the expense date, expense category, or the business trip, air ticket, personal credit card. Quantity is 1. Unit is one-time fees. Expense rate 500. Description. Then search. You will find all your expenses during this period. Then you click Form. It will show all your expenses, and then you print out the form. Then sign your name on the employee signature. Then staple it with your receipts. Let your supervisor to sign as well. Then give them to accounting department. Next is the workflow requests. Workflow requests is a centralized place to manage all our workflow requests. And the workflow requests is highly customizable, which means we can add any requests and workflows by ourselves. So right now, if you click Add, you can see those are existing requests we have right now. So you may gonna use them. It depends on your permissions. Not every department sees all those requests, so it really depends on your permissions. For our sales department, we're gonna use customer info change request, sales sample request, customer price and promotion request, and the business trip request a lot. I will show you an example. They're all the same, like you have to fill in some information, then submit your request, and it will go to your supervisor for approval. Then it will go to other departments. So let's take a look at the sales sample request. So if your potential customers ask you to send them some samples, or your existing customers ask you to send them samples of your new products, then you have to come to workflow requests to use a sales sample request. The request title. Then fill in the customer information, item code, quantity, and the request for. If you do it for someone else, then you can select different requests for. And the due date. The note section is the shipping information. You have to fill in the shipping method, shipping charge, phone, and shipping address. Then apply. Because we have to continue to do the workflow, so we use apply. Click into the workflow. There's a drop-down list on the result column. Click on it. You have to select traditional or mainstream. It depends on which customer category this customer belongs to. I will select mainstream here. Then click OK. Let's go back to the workflow. It goes to next step, which is a mainstream approval. Then the mainstream sales department manager has to come to this workflow to approve. And some workflows you don't have to come into the workflow and to do a manual submit. It's automatically completed for you. Different requests have different workflows. So I encourage you to always come back to the workflow to check the workflow steps. Let's also take a look at another example. Let's do a business trip request. Also fill in the request title. Fill in the from and to date, destination, and purpose, and who do you travel with. So if you want our assistant to book the flight for you, then you have to specify your requirement here. Like, I want to work in the morning, so my departure time, I want it to be in the afternoon before 6 p.m. Something like that. Then after you fill in everything, you click on apply. Then let's check the workflow. It asks you if you need our company to book the hotel or the flight for you, because sometimes you may want to do it by yourself. If you want our assistant to do it for you, you can select yes. Okay, let's take a look at the workflow again. The next step, it goes to your supervisor for approval. Next, document control system. Let's go to document control system. You can only see folders and the files which you have access to. Now let's try to add a folder. Click add folder. Type in name. If you want to set up view permissions or view users, you can do it here. Otherwise, if you leave them blank, everyone can see this folder. It's easier to do view users because you are not familiar with Plex permissions. So to specify users from here, it will be easier for you. Let's do Christina. Okay. So right now, only myself and Christina can view this folder. Then OK. Let's find the test folder. Click into it. Then let's try to add a file. Click add. Upload file. Choose files or drag and drop file here. In Classic, it doesn't allow you to drag and drop. You have to choose files, then find the file path. But in UX, you can drag and drop multiple files together. Still, you can change the name. And you can set up permissions and the users. Because we've already set up the view users from the folder level, so right now on the document level, we don't have to do anything because it will inherit upper level permission. Unless for this particular document, you just want a few people to view, so you can still specify the view users here. And here is a track revision. If you check on it and store revisions, click OK. Okay, Okay, so every time when you edit the document, it will pop up a revision window to let you fill in the revision numbers. So we will do 1 for this one. Okay, because we uploaded 2 files, so the next file property also pop up, and you do the same as the first one. So for this one, I don't want to check revision. Every time when you want to edit a file, you don't have to download the file and edit on your end, then upload again. So you can just edit from Plex. Highlight the file, then checkout. After you click checkout, the file will open up. Then you just edit directly on the file. Then you click checking. Then the file will be automatically updated, and the revision window will be pop up again, and the next time you can fill in the revision too. If you want to change property of the file, you can highlight the file, then click properties. Then you can change the security and the tracking of this file. Next, visitor log. Let's go to visitor log. If you know a person wants to come to visit you, you have to go to visitor log to register for him. Let's add contact. If he came before, he might have already in our system. Then you can just select the contact. Otherwise, you can create a new contact. Then select the schedule date and the purpose. Person to see, select the name. And building. This is very important. The building is required. Otherwise, when Vicky come to check in, she couldn't find her name. Brooklyn. Then OK. Okay, now the in date is pre-registered. So when the visitor come to visit you, she will just need to select her name from the pre-registered list. And then customer service will print out the visitor badge for her. Next, supply list. Let's go to supply list. Supplies are different from our items. Items, they are products or ingredients that are we use in the products. But supplies, they are more like miscellaneous stuff or an intangible service. Like if you want to create a requisition of the service or of the supply, you have to create the supply in the supply list first. So it could be tangible or intangible, as long as you want to manage them in our supply system, or as long as you have to going forward to purchase them. So now let's start with adding a new supply. Type in the supply number. Brief description. Usually it's the name of the supply. Description, you can put in more detailed information such as size or other useful information. For item type, most of the cases you will have to select expenses. Item group, I will do IT. Item category, IT hardware. Item priority, high. And the responsibility. If you want to find this supply fast, you can add the responsibility so that in the supply list, you can fill in the responsibility filter. Then all your supplies will be shown on the supply list. It's easier for you to do search. account number. Usually accounting department, they will send you all the account numbers belong to your department. So every time when you create a supply, depend on the property of the supply, you may put it into different accounts. Update when received. It means if you check the update when received, every time when you receive the PO, the inventory will be increased against the quantity on your PO. But if you uncheck it, it means even though you receive the quantity, but the inventory will not be affected. You may have to manually update the inventory if you want to keep track of the inventory. But even though if you check the update when received, when you receive the quantity will increase. But when you use the item, it won't decrease. You have to do the checkout, then it will be decreased so that you can have the in and out of your inventory. So maybe it's easier to just uncheck it. So every month, if you want to keep track of the inventory, you can update it by yourself. Inventory unit eaches. And you can also set up minimum and the maximum quantity. Apply. Now let's continue to add suppliers. Every supplier needs to have at least one supplier so that you can create requisition later on. So standard purchase quantity and the standard purchase unit is every time you have to at least purchase one case. And the conversion is 20. Remember that on the previous page, we set up the inventory unit as each. So it means one case has 20 eaches of the supply. And the standard unit price is $1 per case. And the lead time is 2 days. Okay, now we've finished the supply. Next, let's move to supply ordering and the requisitions. Remember, we've set up responsibility before, so right now I can just select my name and search. Say it's very convenient. If you didn't set up the responsibility, you will have to search by other filters such as item category, supplier, or item group. Personally, I prefer responsibility. Okay, now this is the supply ordering line. We fill in the quantity we want. Let's do 2 cases. Then check the checkbox and then click Add to Requisition. Then view requisitions and search. Say the requisition is added and it's very fast. Let's click into the requisition and review all the information. Here, the detailed description is required. Quantity 2, unit price 1. And the purpose. Then apply. Okay. We forgot to select the PO ship to. I will do Brooklyn. Apply again. Then we go to the update requisition status to complete our workflow. Click into it. Then complete it. When we complete the step, it means we submit this requisition for our supervisor to review. After everyone approves the requisition, purchasing department, they will create a requisition as PO, then they will purchase the supply for you. Then after you receive the supply, you have to do a general receiving in the system by yourself. Let's go to receive general. Find the PO by supply or supplier or PO number if you have. So I will do it from supply. I check this PO, then select the location where I want to store this supply. Then receive quantity 2. Sometimes if it's less than the required quantity, you have to change the received quantity, then it will become a partial receiving. Okay, let's click on receive. Type in the supplier shipper number. It could be your invoice number, receipt number, or if you don't have the number, you can just type in today's date. Then OK. Cancel. Okay, then we finished our supply receiving. So that's all for our basic functions training. If you have any questions, you can send us email.